The Miami track is terrible for racing. Lewis Hamilton goes for a gap that exists because he's a racing driver, and Max Verstappen dominates once again. Let's get into the latest F1 news before today's main race. Max Verstappen has achieved the exceptional feat of securing pole position for the first 6 races of the season, marking his 7th consecutive pole position overall. Despite facing strong competition from the Ferrari drivers, Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz, and with Sergio Perez completing the top 2 rows on the grid, Verstappen emerged victorious in qualifying for the Miami Grand Prix. Following the sprint event on Saturday, teams had the opportunity to make adjustments to their cars before the qualifying session. Daniel Ricciardo, who had shown promise with a 4th-place finish in the sprint, faced a grid penalty, but remained focused on the task at hand. Amid the intense competition in the opening qualifying session, it was Carlos Sainz who set the early pace, closely followed by other drivers vying for the top positions. Tensions ran high as the clock ticked down in Q1, with Sergio Perez briefly holding the fastest time. The focus then shifted to the struggle to avoid the bottom 5 positions, resulting in the elimination of several drivers including Valtteri Bottas, Daniel Ricciardo, and Kevin Magnussen. Notably, Ricciardo faced a setback after his impressive sprint performance, expressing his challenges over team radio. As the stakes heightened in Q2, Lando Norris pushed the limits by going airborne in a daring maneuver, while others fought to secure a spot in the top 10 shootout. Despite concerns about the performance of the medium tires, Norris opted for a strategic approach and successfully advanced to the next stage of qualifying. Meanwhile, experienced drivers such as Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll faced disappointment as they fell short of making it to the top 10. In the final showdown of Q3, Max Verstappen demonstrated his dominance with a commanding first run, closely followed by his Red Bull teammate Sergio Perez. However, the Ferrari duo of Leclerc and Sainz remained within striking distance, keeping the competition intense. Notably, Norris showed his prowess by securing the 6th position after a strategic tire change, while Mercedes drivers attempted a similar approach in a bid to improve their standings. Ultimately, Verstappen held on to his pole position, with Norris making an impressive jump to 5th place. Despite efforts from the Ferrari and Mercedes teams, the final results solidified the top positions on the grid for the Miami Grand Prix. Max Verstappen may not have been pleased with his tires, but he still managed to effortlessly claim victory in the sprint race at the Miami Grand Prix. Charles Leclerc secured the 2nd-place position, while Lewis Hamilton faced a series of incidents during the eventful sprint race. He was involved in a collision on the first lap and encountered a determined defense from Kevin Magnussen of the Haas team. Unfortunately for Hamilton, his troubles didn't end there. Before the sprint race even began, Esteban Ocon received a 10-second time penalty for clipping Leclerc's Ferrari as he exited the Alpine garage. This incident also caused damage to Ocon's car, resulting in the need for a front wing change before the 19-lap race. Once the drama was resolved, the real racing began. All drivers, except Yuki Tsunoda and Logan Sargent, opted for the medium compound tires, as there were no mandatory pit stops in the sprint race. Tsunoda and Sargent chose the softs. Verstappen, starting from pole position, maintained his lead at the start, with Leclerc holding on to 2nd place. Sergio Perez's attempt to overtake backfired as he went wide at turn 1, allowing Daniel Ricciardo to squeeze into 3rd. However, on the opening lap, the safety car was deployed due to an incident involving Lando Norris, who was unfortunately taken out at turn 1. Norris was an innocent victim of a collision between Hamilton and Lance Stroll, which also involved Stroll's Aston Martin teammate Fernando Alonso. Norris retired from the race, while Stroll was also eliminated. Alonso dropped to the back of the pack. After assessing the situation, the stewards decided not to take any further action. By lap 3, the sprint race resumed, and Verstappen's restart was flawless, keeping him well ahead of Leclerc. Ricciardo, Perez, and Carlos Sainz completed the top 5 in the early stages. Perez quickly overtook Ricciardo's Red Bull by lap 5, while Sainz set his sights on demoting the Australian driver who had been performing well in Miami. Meanwhile, Norris's day went from bad to worse when the stewards confirmed that he would be investigated for crossing the track after leaving his McLaren. As the sprint race reached its second half, Verstappen was struggling with his RB20 car. He held a 2-second lead over Leclerc, but when asked about his tire condition, he expressed concern, saying, "Terrible, zero rear grip, just like during qualifying." A potential battle between Verstappen and Leclerc was brewing, but two intense conflicts continued simultaneously. Ricciardo fiercely defended his position against Sainz, while Kevin Magnussen received a 10-second time penalty for leaving the track and gaining an advantage. Magnussen did everything he could to keep Hamilton at bay, with the two drivers even making contact at one point. Magnussen was later shown a black and white flag for not adhering to proper driving standards. However, he seemed unfazed as he forced both himself and Hamilton off the track at the end of the back straight. This incident cost Hamilton a position, allowing Yuki Tsunoda to move up to 9th. Hamilton eventually managed to overtake Magnussen, who received another 10-second penalty. With just 3.5 laps remaining, Hamilton pushed to break into the points, which he successfully did. Or so he thought. On the final lap, Hamilton made a pass on Tsunoda, but was ultimately penalized with a drive-through penalty, converted to a 20-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. In the meantime, Verstappen secured a well-deserved victory, with Leclerc and Perez finishing in 2nd and 3rd place, respectively. The merch giveaway is still on. To participate, please subscribe to the channel. If we manage to reach 1,000 subscribers by the Miami Grand Prix race, I will be selecting 10 lucky subscribers to receive merch. Thank you for your support. Speculations about Adrien Newey joining Ferrari gained momentum after an exchange of words and a handshake between him and Ferrari vice chairman Piero Ferrari before the Miami Grand Prix sprint. Adrien Newey, renowned for designing championship-winning cars for Williams, McLaren, and Red Bull throughout his illustrious Formula One career, will become a free agent in early 2025 when he leaves Red Bull. Although his involvement with Red Bull's F1 operations has already ended, it remains to be seen if Newey will have another chapter to write with a different team. If Newey were to sign with a rival team, Ferrari is considered the front-runner, given their numerous unsuccessful attempts in the past to lure him to Maranello. The speculation surrounding this possibility intensified after Newey's interaction with Piero Ferrari on the grid before the Miami sprint. While it is not uncommon for Newey to gaze at rival cars, often taking notes, the attention shifted to his handshake and conversation with Piero Ferrari, which stirred up the rumor mill. Was there a plea for Newey to join Ferrari during their lengthy pre-sprint chat? As for Newey's plans beyond Red Bull, he stated that currently he has no specific projects in mind. His near-future aspirations involve traveling with his wife and dogs, possibly in a motorhome, exploring France, and simply enjoying life. The prospect of a new adventure may arise unexpectedly for Newey, perhaps while standing in the shower, but for now he has no concrete plans. The 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton, who is bound for Ferrari, expressed his desire to work with Newey, which Newey found flattering. However, despite Hamilton's endorsement, it hasn't influenced Newey's position. He expressed gratitude for Hamilton's kind words, but emphasized the need for a break before deciding on his next move. During the Miami sprint, Max Verstappen of Red Bull claimed victory, followed by Ferrari's Charles Leclerc crossing the finish line. Toto Wolff has denied the claims that Mercedes asked for special permission from the FIA to allow Andrea Kimi Antonelli to race in Formula One before reaching the age of 18. Wolff is confident that Antonelli will not be in F1 this season. According to a report from Auto, Motor and Sport, Antonelli is set to participate in a test against Mick Schumacher at Silverstone next week, referred to as a comparison test. Wolff dismissed the rumors and speculation, stating that they are nothing more than unfounded claims. Antonelli made headlines in Miami when an unnamed team reportedly requested dispensation from the FIA for him to compete in Formula One before turning 18. However, Wolff clarified that Mercedes was not the team in question. Wolff emphasized that Antonelli needs to focus on his Formula 2 campaign with Prema, and that Mercedes has never pursued the idea of him racing in F1 this season. He explained that the dispensation rumor gained traction due to people entertaining the idea, but it was never something Mercedes promoted. Wolff expressed his belief in Antonelli's talent and future, but stressed the importance of following a diligent progression, rather than rushing through the series. He highlighted that just over a year ago, Antonelli was driving an F4 car, and it would not be beneficial for him to jump from series to series too quickly. Addressing the ongoing speculations about Antonelli driving in Imola, Wolff stated that it will not happen and is not what Mercedes wants. He emphasized that the team has other pressing matters to resolve and that the focus should be on Formula 2. In a separate development, it was reported by Toby Gruner of Auto, Motor and Sport that Mercedes plans to conduct a comparison test between Antonelli and Mick Schumacher at Silverstone. However, Wolff emphasized that they have no intentions of allowing Antonelli to race prematurely in Formula One, as they want to protect him from being overwhelmed. It was also mentioned that Williams is interested in Antonelli, but would only consider him if they can secure a commitment for at least 2 years. This test will mark Antonelli's third experience in a Formula One car, following his previous outings with a 2021 Mercedes W12 at the Red Bull Ring and a W13 at Imola. Following his racing tactics in the sprint race at the Miami Grand Prix, Kevin Magnussen is off to see the stewards. The Danish driver picked up 3 separate 10-second time penalties during the sprint race in Miami, before receiving a summons from the FIA stewards for his defense against Lewis Hamilton. Kevin Magnussen engages in intense defense against Lewis Hamilton, occupying 8th place during the sprint race at the Miami International Autodrome. Magnussen found himself under pressure from Hamilton as the Mercedes driver tried to get by the Haas. Picking up an instant 10-second time penalty after skipping the chicane, Magnussen engaged in the same tactic he used to great effect in the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. With teammate Nico Hülkenberg ahead on track, he set about holding back Hamilton at whatever cost. It resulted in some unusual driving choices, with Magnussen not caring about how much time he lost, as he did everything in his power to keep Hamilton behind, including intentionally running wide to push the Mercedes out off the track with him. Picking up a further 2 10-second time penalties for his repeated track limits antics, Magnussen was also shown the black and white flag. Since the race ended, Magnussen has now been summoned before the stewards for an alleged breach of Article 12.2.1L, which bans any infringement of the principles of fairness in competition, behavior in an unsportsmanlike manner, or attempt to influence the result of a competition in a way that is contrary to sporting ethics. With Hülkenberg finishing in 7th and Magnussen coming home classified in 18th once his penalties were applied, the Danish driver said the penalties he'd been given were a fair cop. "All the penalties were well-deserved, no doubt about it," he said. "But I had to play the game again. I was in a very good position behind Nico Hülkenberg there. At the beginning of the race, I gained a lot of positions and was up in P8. I was protecting well from Lewis because I had the DRS from Nico, and I had good pace. Then Nico cut the chicane and I lost the DRS. Nico could have given that back to give me the DRS to protect, because then we would have easily been P7 and P8. Instead, I was really vulnerable to Lewis, started fighting with him like crazy, and I had to just create the gap like I did in Jeddah. I started using these stupid tactics, which I don't like doing, but at the end of the day, I did my job as a team player and Nico scored his points because I got that gap for him so Lewis and Tsunoda couldn't catch him. Not the way I like to go racing at all, but it was what I had to do today." Hamilton, upon hearing Magnussen's open admission of his tactics, said he understood the Haas driver's position and wasn't annoyed despite the frustration of being unable to clear the Dane. "I think that's pretty honest of him and pretty cool," Hamilton told Sky F1. "We had a good race. It was a little on the edge in some places. That's what I love. I love racing hard. And for me, I wasn't really frustrated or anything. That's what you do to work as a team."